Hey guys, so we've got another Season 4 Mythic Plus guide today, and it's Junkyard, so let's go. Right, so to get to the dungeon, go to upstairs in Oribos by the flight path. There's three portals, one of them on the right, I think, is to Mechagon. I'll take you to the entrance there. Right, so when you first go into this dungeon, you want to open your map and have a look, because the final boss will be patrolling over one of the other bosses. This changes every week, the location that it starts. It'll always go north from where it starts when you kill another boss, so as soon as you go in, open your map, have a look where this boss is, and don't go there because it's basically hard mode, which you don't really want to be doing on Mythic Plus. So the reason Junkyard is probably considered the easiest dungeon is because of the bots placed around the dungeon that give you buffs. So these buffs will disappear if you die. They're located all around the dungeon, and we'll go over them now. So the first one is the Shock bot. This will give you the buff Conductive, and it basically gives your attacks and abilities a chance to do extra nature damage that'll chain to nearby enemies. This is really, really strong. Paired well with this is the Grease bot. This will increase your movement speed by 10% and your haste by 5%. And then we have the Welding bot, which will increase your maximum health and healing received by 10%. So this dungeon is all about getting these bots and not dying to use them to your advantage. At the beginning of the dungeon, you want to choose the haste buff from the seasonal fix, as this will result in more conductive damage. So let's talk about some of the important trash in this dungeon. We have the heavy scrap bot. They'll do exhaust, which is a cloud that'll break line of sight. You need to pull them out as soon as you can. They do gyro scrap, which is an AoE ability you just need to step away from. And they also have an interruptible cast, repair protocol. If this goes off, they'll heal to 100% HP, so make sure you interrupt it. We also have scrap hounds that will target a player with balk, which is a frontal. If you get hit by this, you'll have your haste and movement speed reduced by 50%. We have the piston head blasters. They will target a player with scrap grenade, which you'll see like a red swirly underneath you. Make sure you move away from this. We also have piston head mechanics. They will do overclock. If this goes through, this will give all nearby robots 100% haste, so make sure you interrupt. They also have another interruptible cast called repair. If this goes through, it will heal the target for 50% maximum HP. We have the weaponized crawler. This will do a 45-yard frontal. It will target a random player who just needs to sidestep it. And then we have Shot Coil, which is unavoidable nature damage. You might have to just pop a defensive and eat this. Now we have the Renormalizer. They have two casts. One is Enlarge, which will increase the health and damage dealt by 100%. If you have a mage in your group, you can let this go through and they can spell steal this for a huge buff. Otherwise, make sure you interrupt it. The other one is Shrink, so damage and healing reduced by 99%. Also, if anybody stands on you, they'll stun you and probably nearly kill you, so make sure you interrupt this one. The Slime Elementals will do Slime Bolt, and it needs to be interrupted. It'll do nature damage and reduce their movement speed by 50%. They'll also choose a random player, and then they'll charge towards them with Slime Wave. This will do nature damage and knock anybody back, so just move out of the way or stun them if you can. We also have the Toxic Lurker. He'll do a channeled cast, Suffocating Smog. This will do plague damage and stun the target until interrupted. Now, to make the boss Gunker spawn, there'll be 3 toxic monstrosities around the area, and they have little robots stuck inside them we need to free. These arts will do Consume, which will draw little players in, and then do Consuming Slime, which will basically put a Healing Absorb nature damage dot on them. This can be dispelled, or if you're worried, you can reflect it, or if you can't dispel it, just move out and then come back in. Okay, now for the boss Gunker. So when you're tanking him, you need to stay in melee range all times, otherwise he'll start one-shotting your teammates with Sludge Bolt. Also, don't go right underneath him, you'll get gooped if you do. There'll be 3 little robots that we freed earlier. There'll be 1 in melee, 2 in range, and they're basically safe spots. The boss will cast Splatter. You'll see green puddles on the ground, make sure you avoid them. And you'll also goop one of the robots. You need to DPS the robot or dispel it to free it, and if any teammates get caught by the Splatter and get gooped, you also need to break them out as well. They've also cast Coalesce, which will draw all the gooped in towards the boss while pulling you in as well. So you can just avoid find a good spot and just avoid it all coming in. Toxic Wave, this is something you can't avoid. You have to make sure you're inside one of the robots to be safe. Now, you don't need to be in a robot all the time in this fight. In fact, it's not ideal to do so, because when the boss splatters and goops one of the robots, if it's the one you're in, you just automatically get gooped. So basically, the only time you need to really be in one is when he does Toxic Wave. The rest of the time, you can just avoid it by being aware of everything and then stepping in if you need to. But make sure if you are a paladin or a monk, you can dispel the group targets, so make sure you're prioritizing that. Okay, now we have the boss Trixie and Nano. So Trixie will do a cast Tase, which needs to be interrupted. It'll do nature damage instantly and then leave a dot. She'll also do Electric Slide, which will relocate her around the room, and then Jump Start, which is when she'll start up the Mecha Cycle, which Nano will jump in and pilot. So while Nano's in the Mecha Cycle, you need to be keeping an eye on where he's facing, because he'll look at a player and then charge towards them. Anyone gets hit by this will most likely die. While he's charging around, he'll leave like clouds of dust around, so keep an eye on where they spawn, because Trixie will do Mega Tase on a player. The only way to avoid this is to go inside the cloud before the cast finishes, and then the cast will miss you. When Nano is not in the Mecha Cycle, he'll do Bolt Buster, which is like a frontal cone on the tank, so make sure you're not in front. He'll do Roadkill, which he charges to a player and does an AoE smash, so spread out if you're ranged. These bosses also need to die at the same time, otherwise they'll buff the other one. So if you kill Nano first, he'll give Trixie 100% haste. If you kill Trixie first, she'll turbo boost Nano and make his attacks do more damage. So just make sure they die at the same time, or close to. Just before the boss Gobblemark, you'll have 2 Scrapbone Bullies. Now they have an enrage that needs to be interrupted. If it goes through, you need a Hunter to soothe or a Druid to soothe it off. They do Shockwave, which is a really nasty frontal you need to make sure you avoid. And Headbutt as well, which will knock your tank around the room, so just be mindful of that. Okay, now we have the boss King Gobblemark. So before you start the encounter, you'll see there's 4 coils around the room and a scrap bot. And you'll need to mark them before you start and give everybody else a corresponding marker, because you need each person to go to a specific coil or scrap bot later on in the fight. You'll notice there's a lot of trogs running in constantly throughout this fight into the boss area, and if you don't deal with them, you get overrun quite quickly. So to start off, the boss will do Rumble, which is just an AoE damage to the group, and he'll also cause swirlies of rocks to fall, and if you get hit, you get stunned and do a lot of damage, so make sure you're avoiding that. When the boss reaches 100% energy, he'll do Charged Smash on the tank. We need the whole group to stack in this to soak it, and also everybody who soaks will get Electrical Charge. Now you can drop this debuff off at the coils or the scrap bot to activate them. The coils will just do lightning damage and kill any trogs that come close, and the scrap bot will spin around and again kill any trogs that get past. So if you don't stack for the Charge Smash and then drop off your Electrical Charge debuff to activate the coils or the scrap bot, you get overrun by all the ads running in. That's basically the fight. The only nasty thing about this fight really is when you have a bad combo with the timing of Rumble and Charge Smash being very close. You might have somebody get stunned by the Rumble or take a lot of damage and then either not get in time to soak the Charge Smash, or the Charge Smash will just kill them because they're already low HP. But mostly this fight is just about coordinating with your group, who's going to what coil and who's doing the robot, and making sure you drop off your Electrical Charge debuffs. Right, as we go towards the final boss now, if you stray off the path too far, you might run into some stealth prowlers. Now these are pretty nasty. They just pounce on targets doing a lot of damage, so if you can, just avoid these at all costs. Okay, one more notable ad, this will be in 2 packs on the final ramp up to the final boss, is the Mechagon Cavalry. It's in a pretty nasty pack already of trash we've already talked about, but the Cavalry will charge to a random target, and then it will start spinning around with a Gatling gun called Rapid Fire. So if you're melee, you need to look at where this is facing and then move around with it to avoid it. If you're ranged, you can stand far enough away that you don't take any damage, but beware if you stand miles away, it might just charge straight to you afterwards and it'll be miles away from the pack. So just be very mindful of where this is facing. This will easily one-shot you on a high key. Okay, now it's time for the final boss, the HK8 Aerial Oppression Unit. So this is a 3-phase encounter. So phase 1, when you start the fight, you won't be able to leave. There'll be a big blue ring around the arena that you can't get out of. And you'll be dealing with the Tank Buster initially. So the Tank Buster will do Wreck on the tank, which is really nasty debuff and attack that you need to make sure you're saving defensives for or calling out for an external. You'll also do Fulminating Zap on random targets, so the healer will have to watch out for this. The boss will call in Reinforcement Relay, which will bring in 3 Walkie Shockies. Now these, you can't DPS them, but you can stun them, root them, knock them back, and just keep them away from you. They'll do Static Discharge, which is a slow and an H damage that you just need to avoid. They'll also leave crap on the floor you have to avoid. During all this, you'll have the boss do Cannon Blast every now and then, which is a big blue beam across the entire room that you need to make sure you're avoiding. Once you kill the Tank Buster, you'll start phase 2. HK8 will fly to the center of the room and start casting Annihilation Ray. So either the north or south overcharge station will be active, and you need to make your way up to this. So there'll be a Sentry Array, which is like a spinny beam you can jump over and you have to avoid, or it'll stun you and send you back. There'll be vents on the floor that'll stun you if you go over them. There'll be sentry bots walking up and down the ramps. If you go into them, they'll send you back to the beginning. So you can use an immunity, run all the way up. You can time your jumps over the sentry arrays, or just take your time and get to the very top. When you get to the very top of the overcharge station, you can then start channeling to hack it. Once it gets depletes 100 energy, the boss will fall down to the floor and it'll then start haywire, which allows it to take 200% more damage for 30 seconds. So a good tip here is before you finish the hack, maybe just leave the tank up there and have everyone else go down and get ready. And as soon as the boss enters the ground with haywire, you're ready to go with 100% uptime, pop lust, pop all the cooldowns, and kill the boss. If you don't kill the boss within that time, he will fly back up and start phase 1 all over again. So it's very important that you kill him in phase 1. I mean, kill him in one phase. Otherwise, it's a huge time loss to do the whole fight again. Just be aware that if you do fail to defeat the boss while he's in haywire, he'll do lift off, which will knock everyone back and do a lot of damage. So you have to make sure you get away from him before he does lift off. And that's it. We're done. This turned out to be quite a long video. I didn't expect it to be this long, but there's a lot of important trash to talk about. A lot of the bosses, especially the last one, has a lot going on. But yeah, I hope this guide helped you out. I've got guides for all the dungeons, and if I haven't, they're coming out soon. So make sure you subscribe and check out my other videos. If you want to come do a dungeon with me or join us for a viewer raid sometime, I'm over on Twitch almost every day. So yeah, I'll see you guys again. Bye!